Welcome, early birds. We're going to start our webinar in just about 5 minutes. As you're watching the presentation, if you have any questions, please use the Q&A function of Zoom webinars, and we'll get to your questions. We're going to do it twice, once at the end of part 1 and once at the end of part 2. Welcome, everyone. We'll get started in about 3 minutes. I just wanted to make a note for those of you who want to receive CPE credit for today's webinar. You must stay for the entire session, the full 2 hours, and you must respond to all the poll questions asked in order to receive the CPE credit. So we're asking you to please respond to all poll questions, even the lighthearted ones. Just about 2 minutes away from starting. Welcome to Hot Topics. We're really glad you're here. I've got a note in the chat regarding CPE credits. Also, I have a note regarding a survey that we're going to be sending out immediately following the webinar today. And this is your chance. If we haven't covered a topic that you would like to see in Hot Topics, please let us know via the survey, and we'll do our best to get that scheduled for an upcoming event. We're about a minute away. Thank you for being with us today. And just a note, after today's session, we will respond to everybody and send you a link to the recording, as well as the slides and the survey that I just mentioned. So welcome, everyone. We are very glad to have you here. LBMC Technology Solutions is happy to present 2023 Release 2 Hot Topics, Insights to Core Reconciliation. And I'm very happy to introduce today's presenter, Toma Lee, a Sage Intacct implementation consultant with LBMC Technology Solutions. Toma holds a bachelor's and a master's degree in accounting. She has worked for public accounting and was once a Sage Intacct end user, like most of the folks on the call today. Toma is constantly learning and constantly upgrading her proficiency in the software. Her current areas of interest are financial report writing, custom document development, and Sage Intacct's platform services to optimize automation capabilities. Her love of finding solutions extends beyond the office, and I admire her because she has numerous do-it-yourself projects going on around the home. She enjoys spending time with her families and being outdoors. And here's a fun fact. Toma plays in a local competitive table tennis league. So thank you, Toma, for preparing this learning opportunity for us. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Dawn, for the introduction. And again, welcome everybody. And thank you for joining today's Hot Topics session and our R2 release cycle review. I'm going to do a quick house check. Are we able to see?
Yes, I can see your slides.
Perfect.
And hang on just a second. I received a Q&A. So the question is with regards to CPE credit. And we are offering, if you requested CPE credit when you registered, what you will need to do to receive the credit for today's event is you must stay on for the entire event, and you need to respond to all the poll questions that we have. And we have some serious ones and we have some lighthearted ones, but please make sure that you respond to all of them in order to get your CPE credit. So with that, Toma, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Perfect. Thanks, Dawn. So today's hot topic and our first part of the session will cover insights to core reconciliation. And our second part of the session, we will cover the release cycle for our second quarter, some updates and any added new features. All right, so for our objectives for the first part of today's session, we will outline a few key types of core reconciliations. We'll review common mistakes and identify potential solutions. We'll check out bank rules for cash management and explore a little bit about dashboards and checklists for the month-end process. And then we'll dive a little bit into how smart rules and smart events can help. Now, you'll see a variety of symbols throughout the presentation. A magnifying glass will mean that I will show a brief live demo on the selected topic in a demo environment. A link symbol will have an attached URL, which will take you to the designated topic in the release notes for additional information, or it might take you to the Help Center or another designated area where you can learn additional information about where the link is attached to. For the people icon, this means we'll pause for a brief polling question. And with that being said, let's go ahead and pause for our first polling question of the session.
Great. Thank you, Toma. And I am going to launch our first polling question. And that is, are you looking for ways to automate AR/AP workflows? It's an easy yes or no question. So are you looking for ways to automate accounts receivable, accounts payable workflows? Give it a couple more seconds. Wonderful. So I'm going to end the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I'm going to share the results. So an overwhelming number of you are looking to automate your AR and AP workflows. Only 19% are not. And I'm guessing that's because you have found a way to automate, or you just have a very, very low volume. So thank you. And I'm turning it back over to you, Toma.
Thank you, Dawn. So when I think of reconciliations, I think of a starting point with the result tying two areas of particular interest together. I also like to safely assume that one or the other starting point acts as a control in which I can rely on the reconciled to balance. So when we talk about AR and AP subledgers, you generally reconcile back to the general ledger, and your process may or may not include customer or vendor aging schedules in the process. With bank checking, savings, or credit card, or in Intacct terms, charge cards, in which the starting point can either be the book balance or the bank balance. And if we're looking at the book balance, this is generally reconciled at month end back to the bank balance. And likewise, with your custom account groups and custom financial reports, these are generally reconcilable back to quick start categories and standard reports if your company was set up using a service, general, or not-for-profit setup. As a reminder, you can set up quick start categories by editing your general ledger accounts. It is recommended and important to assign a quick start category to your general ledger accounts to ensure a good control starting point. Now, some common mistakes and pitfalls. Mistakes are going to be unavoidable and will be incurred along the way as you navigate both month-end and year-end reconciliations. Here are a few scenarios that have historically been a common ground in the reconciliation world that I've either seen through direct client projects, potentially experienced myself on the user end. With accounts payable and accounts receivable, one of the common mistakes is using a date basis that's other than the general ledger posting date. This can cause issues when reconciling back to your subledger and general ledger. Control accounts are those in which the configuration was originally based on, meaning when your environment was configured, a AR or AP general ledger account was assigned to the configuration. Best practices overall call to avoid using the AP and AR general ledger accounts that are used as control accounts in those configuration settings if you are using the corresponding module to its full capacity, meaning you are maintaining vendors and customers in Intacct and potentially generating customer invoices or collecting payments on those customer invoices. Or you are entering vendor bills and making payments on those vendor bills, either through Intacct entry or some sort of AP automation. Now, likewise, it is also recommended to keep the associated control journals free of non-standard transactions. For example, making AP or AR adjustments directly to the AR AP cash receipts, or cash disbursement journals. This will cause discrepancies between the general ledger and your subledger. Another common mistake under AR and AP could be using closed aging periods or periods that overlap within your aging schedules. Now, this can cause duplication or omittance in your aging schedules by duplicating transactions in multiple aging buckets. And by not labeling reversals as historical transactions, you may also encounter discrepancies between your subledger or aging schedules. Now, with cash management, manual reconciliations in the cash management module and potentially waiting until month end close to do your cash management reconciliation may also pose risks of error and cause reporting delays, because as you wait towards month end, you may realize that you have a lot of reconciliations left to do, and this can slow your month end close and reporting process, especially if you encounter errors. Soft reconciliations throughout the month may highlight those potential issues and allow enough adequate time for research and resolution as you work through those soft reconciliations throughout the weeks leading up to your month-end close. We'll take a look at how using rules in your cash management may help some of your reconciliations. Now, with custom account groups and custom reports, there is always going to be a risk of account exclusion or duplication and not conforming to normal balances or calculation methods as they relate to the nature of the GL account. So potentially you have an expenses custom account group and you mislabeled the entire group as a credit balance or have a calculation period that's either at the beginning or the end, instead of having a for the period calculation method. Using quick start categories oftentimes provide a reliable reference point for both custom account groups and custom reports. Now, over the next couple slides, we'll look at some suggested solutions as they relate to the accounts payable and accounts receivable subledger reconciliations back to your general ledger. And then we'll take a look at those rules and custom account groups later on in the session. So a suggested solution for the general ledger is to always run your customer and vendor aging schedules based on the GL posting date. You can see in the snapshot, we have the GL posting date selected. Now, because vendor bills and customer invoices offer the ability of using a GL posting date that's different from the transaction date, and you can see in the screenshot, it can be either a bill date or a due date, and those don't always correspond with the GL posting date. The best practice is to always run your vendor and customer aging schedules based on that GL posting date. Now, another suggested solution is to disallow direct posting to those control accounts in which your AR and AP modules have been configured to. This allows you to reduce risk of non-standard transactions affecting the control AR or AP accounts. This can be done at the general ledger account level by selecting the checkbox to disallow direct posting. And we can see here, we can go to the general ledger accounts, and edit our account. Should you need to keep track of AR and AP changes that do not relate to the respective modules, you may want to consider using an other payables account or another receivables account instead. This will allow you to keep the control accounts reserved for transactions specifically to the AP and AR modules, while also giving you the option to capture non-standard receivable and payable transactions. Another suggested solution is to run a GL report to identify any abnormal activity in those control accounts. You can quickly identify non-standard transactions that have been posted to control accounts and control journals by running a general ledger report to include your AP and AR accounts. Transactions that are posted to these journals and their respective control accounts will be easily identifiable by a few key factors that do not follow a uniform pattern. In this example, we can see that the control accounts payable GL account has several transactions that have been posted to the general journal. So notice also that the dates on 2/28 are not linked, and you cannot drill down into those dates by the transaction date. That's also another key identifier that a transaction has been posted to an accounts payable or an accounts receivable general ledger account that is not part of your AR or AP module. You'll notice that the February details and AP adjustments here do not follow a pattern of bills and payments as it relates to the accounts payable general ledger account. You'll see that the accounts payable journal is used for bills and your cash disbursements journal is used for payments. Here we have a suggested solution for your aging buckets. Your aging buckets or periods should have an open-ended minimum start date and maximum end date. Your periods should not overlap. Otherwise, you may risk viewing transactions in multiple periods. Now, notice the difference in the two tables shown here. In our lower table, our minimum and maximum buckets are not open-ended, meaning our minimum range here is 0 days to 0 days, and our maximum bucket ranges are 120 to 120 days. This can pose a risk for not including transactions that are generated before the 0 date range, or any transactions that have been outstanding past your 120-day range maximum end date. You'll notice that additionally, rows 3 and 4 each have an overlapping period to its preceding period. So rows 3, 4, and 5, actually here we have our 30, 60, and 90 minimum ranges also have a maximum range of 30, 60, and 90. This poses a risk of having duplicate transaction in multiple aging buckets instead of having single transaction in a single aging bucket. Now we do have a question in the chat as to what are control accounts. So control accounts and control journals are those accounts that are configured to the module and are used for that business process. So if you have an AR or an AP general ledger account that is configured to your AR or AP module, this is considered a control account. And posting or making entries to control accounts can potentially throw off your subledger reconciliation to your vendor aging schedule and respectively to the general ledger. So the control account for accounts payable will be your accounts payable. And anytime you enter a vendor bill into the accounts payable module, generally, this is going to be some sort of an expense and the offset is going to be the accounts payable. So when you're entering your vendor bill, you do not have to enter the credit side or the offset to your expense. This is one of the natures of a control account, meaning you're letting Intacct do the necessary back end offsets instead of having to manually enter a debit and credit for the expense and accounts payable. That was a great question. Another suggested solution as it relates to reversals. We want to display reversals as historical transactions to allow for the reverse transaction to be displayed in the aging schedule. This helps to ensure that your aging report balances to the GL report. So this means if you have a particular customer invoice or vendor bill that you have reversed, that you may have received payment for or have paid, if the checkbox is not checked, which can be checked on the configuration settings in each of the respective modules, if this checkbox is not checked, you risk the potential to have the reverse transactions not show up in your aging schedule. If the box is checked, the transaction will be shown as a historical transaction and can be tied out to an AP subledger or general ledger. So at the end of the day, our AP and our AR general ledger accounts should balance out with our customer or vendor aging schedules, which should inevitably equal our corresponding AR or AP subledgers. Again, this is if you are using the modules to their full capacity as they're intended to be used, and not necessarily doing AR or AP entries as imports. For example, if you are in the healthcare industry, you may keep a separate system for all of your billings and revenue recognitions. And at the end of the month or periodically throughout the month, you are importing those transactions as journal entries. You are not using the accounts receivable module to track your customer information and the corresponding invoices. In this case, you are most likely not performing your AR and AP subledger balances back to those customer or vendor aging schedules. So where did we go wrong? If it's not the case that your customer and vendor aging schedules are balancing to your AP and AR subledgers and equal out to your AR and AP general ledger accounts, there are a couple ways you can go about determining where you went out of balance and a couple metrics and measures that you can use to prevent future potential imbalances. Did you balance at go live? So when you went live, were your balances in your AR and AP accounts tied out to your customer or vendor aging schedules and corresponding subledgers? Were your open bills at go live or open invoices at go live imported as historical transactions? Do you have non-standard transactions that have been posted to the AR or AP ledger accounts when you run the general ledger report and review those transactions? You may want to consider using additional other AR or AP GL accounts to capture non-standard business transactions as they relate to those respective accounts. and consider disallowing direct posting to those control accounts and let the modules do the work. You may also want to incorporate a review of the control accounts and journal entries on a regular basis. So running that GL report to include your AR and AP accounts. You can then memorize that report and memorize certain parameters and include a prompt filter for the date. That way you can easily access it at month end or throughout the month to see if a particular user or other transactions have been posted to those AR or AP accounts that are outside of the norm of the AP and AR modules as they relate to your business. We're going to pause here for our second polling question.
Excellent. So let me see. Nicole, if you are here, I keep seeing poll question number 1. I've shared the results. Stop sharing. And would like to get to some other poll questions. Let's see. Here we go. So poll question number 2. Do you currently utilize checklists within Sage Intacct? Give us a yes or no answer. Good thing it's a very short question given my difficulties in getting the poll question up, but everybody seems to be just about finished. I'll give it another few seconds. We'll end the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let me share the results. So only 9% are currently utilizing checklists with Sage Intacct. A whopping 91% are not. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Tilma.
Thanks, Dawn. That is a pretty overwhelming amount of our audience that isn't using checklists. And if you would provide the feedback at the end of the webinar as to why you're not using checklists, we would love to get your feedback on that. Maybe it's because you haven't used them previously. Maybe they don't offer enough functionality, or maybe you just don't have enough training on it and seeing how it fits into your business needs. Or perhaps you don't need checklists. Maybe you're using an outside third-party application. It would be great to hear your feedback. All right, let's take a look at some rules as they relate to the cash management. And now you may or may not be familiar with rules in cash management. If you are using live bank feeds or you are importing your bank feed transactions to perform your reconciliations in cash management, rules are required. So you may have encountered adding rules at one point or another if you are performing reconciliations for your checking, savings, and credit or charge card accounts in Sage Intacct. Over the next couple of slides, we'll cover a high-level overview of the process, because your rules as they relate to cash management have a lot of different types of scenarios. And it may take a whole nother webinar to cover all of the nuances that come with using rules and learning the whole process. So we'll do a high-level overview. All right, so with rules can significantly decrease the amount of time you spend on monthly bank and credit card reconciliations. Though initially, it may take some effort in setting up and some trial and error as you begin to learn how they work in Intacct. There are two types of rules in Intacct that can be applied to either bank or credit card feeds, both live and those that are imported. Match rules are comparing data or transactions that are already existing in Intacct, and they compare it to an imported or a live bank feed transaction. And if certain matching criteria or filters are met, transactions are matched and automatically cleared from your bank reconciliation screen. Now with create rules start with a bank feed transaction. That's the starting point. And they are based on a predetermined transaction template, which can either be posted or drafted and can create a journal entry or a credit card transaction when, again, certain criteria and filters are met within the scope of that rule. You can combine multiple match and create rules to make a rule set. Once you have at least one rule added to a rule set, you can then apply that rule set to a bank or credit card account in your cash management module. You can track the progress of your rule by running a performance log. Again, all of this is found under cash management, and it's going to be located in the main setup tab. Let's take a look at an example of a match rule. Match rules will require at minimum an amount identifier, meaning your amount must either equal a value or must equal the amount that's projected in either the bank or the Intacct transaction. In this particular match rule example, the matching fields include an amount and a document number. So when I'm looking at just the matching conditions of this particular rule, I can deduce the amount of transactions that I'm looking at are most likely associated with a document number that comes from either the bank or Intacct. And I oftentimes think of this as matching check transactions. Now, you will notice that the document number in line 3 offers to have the leading zeros removed. So you're not going to want to use line 1 and 3 for the document number. You'll want to use one or the other. But I have had instances where clients' document numbers from the bank do not match the document numbers in Intacct, even though they're the same transaction. So it can be check number 2005 in Intacct, but the check number that comes in through the bank feed is proceeding with 4 zeros and then your 2005. So Intacct will allow you to remove those leading zeros, and this is starting at the bank transaction. So you notice you have a bank transaction, then you have an operator. You can set a particular value, and then what do you want to match it to as it relates to the Intacct transaction. Now, this can be a one-to-one, or you can include groupings many-to-one, meaning you can group particular Intacct transactions and match them to one bank transaction, or group particular bank transactions to one Intacct transaction. Again, this as you're working or as you're learning about bank rules, this will definitely take some trial and error at the beginning, but the results will pay off as you're beginning to learn and incorporate rules in your cash management and reconciliation processes. Now let's look at a create rule example. Again, like I said, with the create rule, a transaction template is required in order for you to generate a create rule. And what that means is you either have to have a journal entry transaction template or a credit card transaction template created in order for you to begin generating the create rule. Now, in this example, if certain conditions that are within the body of the rule are met, for example, like if the document number equals the document number, or the posting date is equal to the posting date, and the transaction is a withdrawal transaction, or the transaction is a deposit transaction, you can have the system generate a journal entry to post that transaction to your general ledger. Now, again, with create rules, we're starting off on the bank side. Now, whether you're using live feeds or you are using imported bank transactions, either way, those transactions have not been coded to the bank. You either have to match them to your general ledger accounts, or you have to perform another action in order for that banking transaction to hit your GL if it's not already an existing transaction. So in this particular case, we'd like to leave the posting state as draft, and the offset account is to a revenue account and includes department 100 and location 100. Now, by leaving the journal entry in draft mode, you have the option to review it prior to it being posted to the GL. And notice at the top right of the screenshot, the posting journal is to the general journal. Now you can set up a brand new journal that has your create rules all going into one spot and review them from there. Now, by leaving the posting state as draft, this does require you to perform an additional action once the entry is created, which is to go in to review the entry and then manually post it. And if you have any sort of journal entry approvals, it will still go through that journal entry approval process. However, this can be useful as you're beginning to learn the process and to work out any initial idiosyncrasies as it relates to create rules. And as you get more comfortable, you can change that create rule and leave the posting state as posted. All right. If you have not yet checked out the video library in the Intacct Help Center, I do suggest that you take a peek at some of the videos that are available. They are neatly organized by module and summarize some common procedures in a condensed yet pretty informative process. You'll see that the link icon is here. So if you have a copy of the slide deck, or will be provided a copy of the slide deck at the end of the webinar, and you are working through the slides, you can click on this link and this will take you to the video library. Alternatively, if you receive the slide deck, the notes section should have a link as well. So here I've got a couple examples as it relates to the cash management module. We've got a very short video series here on importing bank transactions. You can see these are right around 4 or under minutes. You can look at resolving some unmatched transactions within your bank reconciliation. And then here we have our create a matching rule and create a rule set. Right, let's look at some tips and considerations when working with custom account groups and custom reports. As we've mentioned several times earlier, quick start categories are predefined in the system to work with standard out-of-the-box reports and can be a good point of reference or check, if you will, as you create and begin creating your custom account groups and reports. You can run an account group hierarchy report by going to the general ledger reports and running the account groups hierarchy report. This report allows you to pick from system-defined groups or user-defined groups, or your custom account groups. And as you print out the report individually for the system groups or the user-defined groups, you may potentially notice some changes within the dates or the normal balances as you're creating your custom account groups, and reference the system groups as they relate to the quick start categories at the general ledger account level, and compare some of those identifiers within your user defined groups as you begin creating your custom financial reports. Now, another tip here is to keep in mind that balance sheet accounts versus income statement accounts have different reporting periods and reporting needs as they relate to the nature of the general ledger account. Balance sheet accounts reflect transactions as of a point in time and keep a rolling balance. Income statement accounts, on the other hand, track changes for a particular date range or an intact term for the period. So you'll notice that as you're creating account groups that include balance sheet accounts, you have the option to set up for the beginning of the period or the end of the period. And then for income statement reporting periods as they relate to your custom account groups, and include potentially those revenue and expense accounts, you'll want to make sure that a date range or for the period is included on those account groups. Now, towards the end of the first session, we'll take it a little bit more technical, and we'll look at exploring an example of using a SMART rule with a general ledger account as our starting point. SMART rules and SMART events can be powerful tools that help reduce reconciliation shortcomings and potentially prevent some errors in the future. Let's go ahead and pause for our third polling question.
Great. All right, poll question number 3. Which payroll solution do you use? Your choices are ADP Workforce Now, Run powered by ADP, Remote Service, Paycon, Paychecks, or a custom solution. Oh, we have another choice. I'm sorry. The last choice is manual process done in-house. Didn't want to leave you folks out. So we'll give this a few more seconds. And I'll be closing the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And here are the results. It looks like most of you are using a custom solution, followed by ADP Workforce Now, remote services. So a wide variety of payroll options. So thank you for responding.
Thank you, Dawn.
Yes. Back to you, Tilma.
We did have a question with the create rules template, and the question was, are we able to set these up to go to different entities other than the bank accounts entity? That is a great question, and also something that we will cover during the second part of the webinar. There was a new release feature that allows that transaction template to be used with intercompany or inter-entity transactions. If you are using inter-entity transactions. So short answer, yes, you can set these up to go to different entities. You may, however, if you're not currently using inter-entity transactions, you will have to, you may have to set some of those up in order for that rule to work. Dashboards. Dashboards can be useful. However, oftentimes they are overlooked as aids to month-end reconciliations. A lot of times dashboards are created for end users as they relate to the system, or as aids to certain roles within the company. However, they're not as often used to capture certain aspects of the company as it relates to a month end or a year end or other type of reconciliation process. So here we've got a little magnifying glass. We're going to look at a brief demo in a demo company environment. I'll go ahead and switch over to that demo company environment and let me know if, Dawn, if you could give me a quick thumbs up that you can see the screen.
I sure can. It's GBD Inc.
Perfect. Thank you for that confirmation. So in this particular dashboard example, I've pulled together a couple different components as they relate to our AR and AP modules, and a couple other things that I've included in the dashboard. Now, to get to your dashboards, again, you do have to have certain permissions, and the list of dashboards you can see under the dashboard module. You can have, you can get to a particular dashboard by going to the dashboard list view, or if you have different dashboard groups, as we have in this particular example. I created a new dashboard and I called it a month-end sample dashboard. Now, with this particular dashboard, I did allow to have the date filter at the top of the dashboard. And then I also included a departmental filter and a location filter. And you do have the option to add one more additional filter as it relates to your dimensions. So you have the option to add 3 different filters for your dimensions, and those can be added or edited at the overall dashboard settings. If we look at the dashboard settings here, we have our filters option, and I'm including the as of date, and I've selected a department and location. And for this particular dashboard, there's not a lot of transaction data that's actually going to match, which for our example is actually good because you can see how the components in the dashboard highlight those discrepancies pretty easily. But you can add another dimensional aspect filter at the top of the dashboard if you wanted to. So if I wanted to add a customer or vendor instead of location or department, I can do so. However, I am limited to 3. So notice that they will be grayed out as soon as I hit my 3rd dimensional filter. And then the dashboard permissions, again, you can set up the dashboard permissions to allow access rights to everyone or a particular group, or alternatively, you can deny access to a particular group or individual user. In this particular dashboard example, I have a calendar. Now, this may not seem like it might seem like a trivial little component to your dashboard. However, I'm oftentimes going to my calendar down here at the bottom of my screen, or maybe I'm going back to my email calendar. Having a calendar directly in the dashboard allows me to view the calendar and the date. So today's date is already pre-highlighted for you. And then you have the options of going forward or backwards to view the next month's calendar. Now, a couple of other features that I've added my customer aging report and my vendor aging schedule. And then I've added my general ledger That includes my AP and AR accounts. And then I've also included my AR subledger and AP subledger. So your subledger reports are going to come directly from the AP or AR modules. You have an AP ledger and you have an AR ledger. And then directly under those, you have a customer aging report. And respectively, we have a little bit lower in the AP module, we have our vendor aging report. And then I pulled in the general ledger report to include my control AP and AR accounts. Now let's take a look at this. In our AR ledger, our customer aging report and my accounts receivable, it's a little tiny here. Let's see if we can make it a little bigger. Maybe not too much, but we can see that our accounts receivable has a 4405,944 and 28-cent balance. Now, if we look at our customer aging report and our AR ledger, our customer aging and our AR ledger, they do balance out. Does look like they do balance out. However, they do not balance out back to our general ledger, which means that we may have potentially had other users post directly to the accounts receivable general ledger account instead of letting the module look at those customer invoices and collecting those payments through the module. And then we can see the same thing for our vendor aging schedule and our AP ledger. We can see those do balance out as well. However, if we go back to our general ledger report, we are pretty significantly off balance as it relates to our accounts payable, which definitely means we've had some other non-standard transactions in our accounts payable, or we may have included our vendor aging schedule to be based on a transaction date instead of a GL posting date, which here, that's not the case. We can see that this schedule was ran on a GL posting date, and our AP ledger was also ran on a GL posting date. Now, another component here that I've added is your Sage Intacct Collaborate feature. So if you are currently using Intacct Collaborate to keep track of your conversations in the Intacct instance, you can add the Collaborate flow into this dashboard, and then you can see conversations that have been added in which you have been tagged in. And then I've also added a trial balance here, because if I am going through a month-end reconciliation process, I may want to just have a trial balance handy instead of going to my general ledger and running the trial balance or having it in a memorized report setting. I can have it quickly in my accounts payable, and I don't have to go to a separate tab or module to retrieve it. Now let's circle back to our checklist conversation. Checklists can also be an additional powerful tool that is used before, during, or after a particular reconciliation process. Now, checklists can be used for all sorts of processes, but in this particular scenario, we're going to look at it at an example checklist and how it relates to a particular month-end reconciliation, certain components or assignments within the checklist. We're not going to go into a deep dive into checklists. We'll just do a general overview, because checklists in themselves may take a whole nother hour, and I definitely don't want to keep you all too long. Now, while checklists are not technically robust or fully automated, they do offer consistency in capturing a process month to month, and they do allow for assignment delegations in which, if a particular assignment has been added in a checklist to a certain user, they will receive an email saying that an assignment has been added to a particular checklist that has their name on it. And there's other email functionality with checklists as well, like if you've been assigned as an owner, or if a new checklist has been created for a new month, etc. So we'll look at a brief demo on a sample checklist and its components, and maybe this can get your gears churning in how you can potentially use a checklist as it relates to your month-end reconciliation. And then after which we'll pause for our fourth polling question of the session. So hang tight on the polling.
Okay. All right, our fourth poll question. Let's launch that. And this is one of those lighthearted ones, but we need you to answer. What is your favorite type of music? Country, rock, rap or hip hop, yodeling, classical, or jazz? I love my yodeling, peeps. Give you a few more minutes or a few more seconds. And we're going to close the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the winner is good old rock and roll, followed closely by country music. So thank you for participating and for your great sense of humor. Thank you.
Thank you, Dawn. All right, so let's look at a brief demo on how a checklist can be set up. Again, this is a demo, so it is using generalized processes. It's not going to be overly specific. So your checklist can be found at the company module. It's going to be in the All tab. However, on the Setup tab, you also have an additional, again, this is if you have permissions at the company level to add or view or edit checklist. Under the Setup tab, we have our checklist category statuses and our assignment categories and statuses here. Under the All tab, you can view multiple checklists that have been created for potentially other processes in business. So in this particular checklist, we have a checklist category of month end. The checklist status is in progress. Now, these categories and statuses you will have to generate on your own. So a group or a total of statuses could be in progress, could be not started, could be completed, could be errors, in review, etc. Your checklist name, this is going to be generated per checklist as you're generating a new checklist. So if we wanted to create a brand new checklist for our March close, we would duplicate this checklist and give it a new checklist name for our March. And then our checklist description here, we can see it's a month-end close checklist. Checklist owner, here we have Emma Penny as our owner. And then our assignments within the checklist. So we can see the assignment name here. We have a bank reconciliation. We're reviewing our AP. We are looking at reconciling some short-term investments, reviewing and closing our AR. If we have prepaid expense amortization or depreciation on our prepaids or fixed assets, and then a couple other reviews down here. And you have an assignment description, and this can stay static per the assignment, or you can change the description as it relates to each new month end close. And then we have a start date and a due date. And then we have our assignee. So anytime a new user has been assigned to a checklist item, they will receive that email that they've been assigned. And we do have a question here if there's going to be an update on where the email is sent to the users when it's due rather than when the checklist date is added. That is a great question. And I don't have the answer to that. Hopefully in our third release cycle of this year, we may have an answer. We'll have to keep looking at at our release cycles for updates to our checklist to increase the functionality here. Again, it's not entirely technically robust, like I said, and it's not fully automated, meaning you have to create a checklist for every single month, either upfront or as each month goes on, and you will have to change your start dates and due dates. However, if you duplicate the checklist, the majority of the items will stay the same. You'll just have to update the dates here. And then as the users are working through the particular checklist items, they can give an assignment status to that, to their respective assignment, and maybe a percentage complete here. And this is where it's not fully automated. And I'm definitely hoping that the checklist feature of Intacct has increased functionality in our future releases, because I do think this feature can be useful for keeping track of lots of different business processes centralized in Intacct. Now you do have the option to add attachments to each of these rows. Potentially, if there's an attachment to how that particular assignment is performed, if you have a new individual or a group of individuals joining your company and they're doing this for the first time, an attachment could be an overall process from start to finish on how to perform that particular assignment name, and that can be added to each of these rows. And then comments here, we can add some comments as the assignments are being completed. So here we have a nice little comment that is pending, and we can see that it's on 20% complete, in which we have executives and our board meeting is scheduled for an upcoming date that will most likely trigger us to change the percent complete to 100 and move on to our next month close. And then a couple items on the constraints on this assignment, based on this assignment or on this assignment. Maybe you have some constraints on assignments 2 through 8, in which the previous assignment must be marked 100% complete before any editing can be added to these other assignments. Now, if you want to look at additional resources for the checklist, I would suggest looking at the Help Center and reviewing all the checklist components and features. Now, checklists do not interfere with your GL, so there is a lot of room for error as you're beginning to set this up, unless you add a lot of different assignees and they start receiving multiple emails. However, you do have a lot of trial and error that does not affect the company as a whole when you're beginning to set these up. Now, there is a comment here that this particular user does not have checklists in their Intacct menu, and I would definitely look at the permissions, or ask your admin user to look at your permissions as they relate to the checklist. Now, if we navigate to our Help Center and we look at our checklist. Now, this is the face of the Help Center. The video library, where I showed a couple slides ago, that can include your short videos as they relate to each module, is right on the face of our Help Center. And then if you're looking at the Help Center for checklists, you can look at all about your checklist here. Now, if we look at about checklists, there should be an option here, potentially under our checklist, to look at the permissions. So here on the requirements, you need to be subscribed to the company, which is generally already a subscription in your Intacct instance. You can be a business employee, project manager, platform warehouse user, and the permissions on the checklists in the company. You need to either list, view, or add on the checklist and the assignments respectively. Where are completed checklists kept? If we go back to our company environment and we click done on this particular checklist, in the company setting, under all, you have checklists. The checklist will be a list view of all the checklists, and then you can see the status here as either not started or completed or in progress. So again, the status is dictated by you. You will determine the status as it relates to your business need under the under the setup tab in your company module, and you can add your checklist statuses here. So checklist status, it's as simple as adding a checklist status and given you have all of the permissions. Here we have complete, in progress, and not started, and this acts very much as a tag. So if we have errors, we can simply add this new checklist status, click save, and if a particular checklist has an error status, it will be displayed respectively in our checklist view. So if you're wanting to filter out for your completed checklist, you can either create a new view that has the checklist status as complete, removed, or you can simply look at your completed checklist status by typing complete or seeing your checklist status and look at your completed checklist here. All right, let's keep going and take a look at so we've done our polling question 4. Let's take a look at smart rules and smart events. Now, this will be our last slide and demo of the first part of our session. We'll then do a brief Q&A and keep moving forward to the release highlights for our second quarter release. Now, if you have not previously used smart rules or smart events, the initial setup, just like the checklists and cache management rules, can be overwhelming to begin with because the functions may get increasingly more technical the more detailed your particular scenario or end result becomes. And though I am no expert myself, I will try to simplify the overview process and provide a few examples of the possibilities using 2 basic examples as they relate to our GL account. Now, we have smart rules and smart events as part of this example. Smart rules are based on validations, meaning they offer validation options in which an error or a warning will pop up as a user is generating a particular transaction in this case, or adding a general ledger account. In my smart rule example, I would like for the user to receive a warning message to act as a reminder to add that new general ledger account to an existing custom account group, and it will be triggered when the quick start category is left blank. Now, warning messages in smart rules will allow the user to continue and save their particular transaction or addition feature. However, if your smart rule is an error generating validation, an error message will still show up just like a warning message. However, the user will not be able to save the entry. So in this particular example, I had it saved as a warning message. And let's take a look at a brief example of that smart rule. Well, my smart rule here has a starting point, which will be the owning object. So I'm starting at my GL account. Now the wizard is going to walk me through 3 steps. Like I said, with the smart rules, you either have an error or a warning, and I do want the warning message to be displayed. Again, this is going to be a very high level overview because smart rules and smart events do have their own respective learning curves. My events here, you have the option so this will be acting as the trigger. So it will happen when you add a GL account, edit a GL account, or delete a GL account. However, in this particular case, I want a warning to pop up when a new GL account is added. And then my condition here is when that quick start category is missing. And then my message down here is going to say, it looks like you are trying to add a new GL account. don't forget to add this to your custom account groups when you save. A quick start category has to be populated below to ensure accurate management financial reporting. So let's take a look at this. I am going to go to my general ledger and I'm going to add a general ledger account. Now I'm going to give it a account number, and give it a test account name. Then I'll leave my quick start category blank and everything else can stay the same. So let's see if our smart rule works. Here we are. We are receiving an error message. Now you can repeat the action because it is a warning and still save that particular entry. And I can see my error message here displayed. So this is an example of how you can use a smart rule when a particular user or yourself is adding a new GL account to give you that little mental reminder of, oh, hey, I have to go add it to a custom account group, or hey, I have to make sure that there's a quick start category in order for me to have a good starting point to compare back to my custom account groups. Now, what if you don't want what if there are different users who are using, who are actually in the instance, but you have a different user who's maybe generating those custom account groups or custom financial reports. And in that case, I'd like to look at a smart event example. And this, my smart event here we'll take a look at generating an email when a new GL account has been added. So smart events are triggered when an event occurs and certain conditions are met. In my smart event, I'd like for a designated user, which will be myself, to receive an email when a new GL account has been added. You can follow the link below here to learn more about smart rules and smart events. Let's take a look at a brief demo for our smart event component. So for our smart event component here, we're going to go back to our platform services and go to a smart event. You'll see a lot of these here that have been predefined for our audit system, but I've added a new one for our GL account email. Now, in this case, I'm also going to start off with a GL account. And I'd like an email generated when the event is a new user or a user is adding a new GL account. And I'd like for my email, I'd like it to go to my email address. And here we have our subject and the body of the email. And it will say a new account has been added. And the body of the email says that gives the account number and the account title, and then gives me a little message to also act as a mental reminder to go in and add that particular GL account to your categories or custom account groups and custom reports. Let's go ahead and add our GL accounts, and then we'll go in to the next couple of slides, and I'll circle back on when that email is generated. Give myself a little title. I will go ahead and populate a quick start category. Really, it doesn't matter too much on the semantics of this account because I just want it to generate that new email for me. And I'll go ahead and save. And we'll go ahead and wait for that email to be generated on my end. All right, so it looks like we have completed a lot of our Q&As in regards to our first session. I think we'll have another Q&A session at the end of our 2 release feature, but to keep on track, we'll keep plugging forward.
Great.
All All right, so we are now moving into the second part of our webinar for today, which will cover an overview of the new features released for our second quarter of this year. Let's take a look at our agenda for the second half of our webinar. We'll review the features that have been updated or newly added as part of the release cycle on May 12th. And towards the end of the presentation, we'll look at some additional resources and we'll review the dates for the third and fourth quarters later this year. Now, as a reminder, Intacct releases these updates on a quarterly cycle, and many of the updates are based on ideas submitted by customers like you that are posted into the Intacct community. Now, if you don't have access to the community, please let us know and we'll be happy to assist in gaining that access. You can easily access these release notes from the homepage screen of your Intacct environment, and there are additional video recordings and more detailed information for your further review in the release notes themselves. Now, I will use two additional symbols throughout the presentation. If you see a light bulb next to a message that reads, "This idea came from you," it means just that. A previously submitted idea to the community has now turned into a release feature that we'll review during the slide deck. The magnifying glass, again, will be, I'll show a brief demo. The link symbol, you will be able to click on that link after the webinar when you receive the slide deck, which will take you to that designated area for further information. Now, if there is if you see a movie icon, that means there is a pre-recorded video or a demo on that particular item. There's not a whole lot of them in this series. You can also click on that icon and it will take you to a pre-recorded demo. And again, the people icon means we will pause for a polling question. And then the rest of the slides will focus around added or updated functionality, or potentially both as it relates to modules or other areas. Let's go ahead and pause for our fifth polling question.
Wonderful. So here is poll question number 5. And Toma showed us some dashboards. And so our question for you is, will this be the summer of dashboards for your organization? So yes, I can't wait to deliver customized dashboards to the team. Yes, but I want to start with mine and give it some thought. What are these dashboards you speak of? I want to learn more. Or no, not yet. So we'll give it a few more seconds. And I will close the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And here are the results. It looks like most of you want to start with your own before branching out with the rest of the team. Would love to see what some of those designs look like down the line. All right, Toma, I'm going to send it back to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Dawn. So I did have an email generate on our smart bowl. Let's take a look here. And the email is coming from support@Intacct. Our message says new account added 60146, and this is our example account. And then you can see in the body of the email, it says a new general ledger account has been created. And it gives it the user who created it, which is my username, and then gives you a little information, again, a little mental reminder to add it to your appropriate account groups and ensure that it includes a quick start category. So we can see our smart event in real time. All right, let's keep going. we are going to first look at some added features to the company admin and overall user experience. Now, in general, Sage Intacct locks users out when they exceed the maximum number of login attempts. However, previously, if a user was locked out for exceeding those maximum number of login attempts, they may be unaware that they were locked out. Now, the added feature is that when a user is locked out of Intacct, they receive the following email explaining why they were locked out and that an admin can reset their password. So the email will look like you have exceeded the maximum number of login attempts to Sage Intacct. Contact your company's admin to reset your password. There are new permissions added for AR and the general ledger modules. And those permissions now allow you to edit reversals of dates on posted, edit the reversal dates on posted payments to correct the date on which the reversal transaction posted. That means that if you had previously, if you had reversed a transaction, you would have to contact Intacct support for them to edit the reversal date on that reversal. Now you have the option to edit the reversal on those posted payments. So make sure to go back in and look at your accounts receivable module permissions for the users that relate to that module and check that those checkboxes are checked. You can now also lock a closed period. We'll take a look at that in a couple of slides. And the subscription page details. So the subscription page allows you to subscribe to certain modules or future modules, and it's also how implementers subscribe to modules as your environment is being built throughout implementation. So the subscription page now offers a details link on selected subscriptions. The details link goes into more information on sage.com to help you decide whether or not a specific subscription is right for your company. So potentially you are looking into contracts in this example. If you are in the subscriptions page under your company tab, you can click on the details and it will bring you up to another link on a website, and you can see here there's like a brief demo. You can see how it works here in a little 2-minute demo and see if it would be the right subscription for you. Now, in the future releases, you may see more descriptions as they relate to each subscription, so be on the lookout for those. Now, some updated functionality to our company admin and user experience. This one is a pretty big one, and we have our multi-entity migration. Sage Intacct began upgrading some select customers from single entity to multi-entity companies starting in the R2 release cycle of 2022. So that was right around this time of last year. After the upgrade, you can continue operating as a single entity or expand your Intacct company by adding more entities, all without any implementation on your part. Now, adding additional entities do come with a cost. You do not need to do anything to upgrade your Intacct environment to the multi-entity environment. Intacct will take care of this for you. However, recommendations around this update are to name your new entity and give it an ID before the upgrade happens. And that's it. A Sage Intacct representative will contact you before taking on the upgrade in your particular instance and keep you in the loop as the upgrade progresses. On our import templates, there have been a couple more templates that have been added into Excel format, which supports more users across different regions. These new templates are more flexible and easier to use than previous templates and have been updated for general ledger journal entries, accounts payable vendors, and accounts receivable customers. Let's look at some updated accounts payable enhancements. Now, you may have seen this feature previously, but may not have ventured out to see what the capabilities are. You can now turn on a beta list view interface and see how you can personalize your views on the vendor list area. You can leverage advanced filters and manage the list by viewing a side-by-side comparison of the vendor and the vendor record. This functionality is available for US-based companies and is now on the vendors list. We do have a brief demo here, so let's go ahead and take a look at this demo. But this beta list view, it's going to be under your accounts payable under the vendors list. So if you click on vendors, you will see a yellow exclamation point here, and you can see a brief video as well. And you can turn on this beta list interface. Once you turn that on, if you decide that this feature is not for you and you don't like its capabilities, you can simply turn off the beta view and it will go back to the view that you are currently used to. You can see here that in this beta list view, it retains the original view that was native to the standard view as it relates to the vendors, but you can see a beta feature here. You can also, if you do like certain aspects of this beta list view, but others you do not, you can send Intacct direct feedback. You can personalize your views by adding, moving, or resizing the columns. So here, if I want to drag over my status next to my vendor name, I can do so by simply dragging over the status, and you can see the status column now populates next to my vendor name. And now I can also see that my address line 1 is a little smushed. So I'm going to give it a little more room by dragging out this column, and I can see the total address now listed for each of the vendors. You can also freeze the columns, or you can enable a side-by-side view. And the side-by-side view is going to be right here in this little split icon next to the filters. And if I hover over that, it shows me a split view. So I'm going to go ahead and click on my split view here, and it populates almost like a split screen, as if you were to split your screen in your regular monitor view. And then here we're looking at my first vendor, and I can see all of the vendor record details, as well as a listing of my other vendors to click through without going directly into that vendor record. And then I can see all of my columns or tabs that are related to that vendor record still visible as it relates to the vendor record. And then I can quickly switch to another vendor here. And then I'll see the same features. Now, let's say I want to turn this off. I don't like this. It's too clunky or too new for me. I can turn off the beta view, and it reverts back to the old view that you are used to. Let's look at some accounts receivable added features. And now I briefly mentioned this during our initial first couple of slides when we were looking at those permissions. So you are now able to edit the reversal dates on posted payments. This allows you to change the date on the reversal transactions that have posted to the general ledger. And then again, previously, after you had specified that reversal date for a posted payment, you could not update this. Now you can by selecting Edit on Enable of Reversal Dates in the configuration page. So this particular screenshot tells you how to actually, this will be for our second one. So our edit reversal dates, this will be in your accounts receivable configuration page. So you do have to have adequate permissions in order to do the configurations on the module. And it will be a little checkbox on the enable functionality to edit the reversal of your posted payments that have previously been reversed. Now, after you enable this setting, you will still need to assign other users this particular permission or functionality. And but this will give you some control around who can actually use this feature. This option is unavailable if your company is subscribed to the contracts application. And there are a couple instances in which you cannot edit a reversal date. And that is if you are at the entity level trying to edit a top level payment, in which you also can't edit a reversal date if a particular period is closed or if a payment summary is closed. Now, on bulk credit application via import, last year's features included the ability to import customer payments in bulk through a CSV import. You can now use the same CSV template to apply your credits in bulk. You can also, similarly, you can also apply your AR adjustments, negative invoice credits, and inline credits in the same way. Now, this screenshot will tell you a little bit more about how it works and how to get there. A couple more updated features in accounts receivable is on the customer lists. So now when you are drilling down into a customer name from the customers list, the customer record opens. Previously, this link took you to the AR ledger report for the customer. Now you can still access a customer's AR ledger report by going to the AR module, the All tab, reports, and look at the AR ledger. And you can select your customer from and to and use additional filters to run that report. Some enhancements to dunning notices if you are using dunning notices. You can now filter by a specific customer group when using certain filters to send dunning notices. So if you have a particular customer group that's labeled as maybe late payers, for example, you can filter by this customer group when sending out your dunning notices, and it will only send the dunning notices to that customer group. This option allows you to fine-tune your filter instead of a more general filtering type for a range of customers. This allows you to select specific customer groups under a customer group filter. All right, we are going to pause for our 6th polling question before moving over to cash management updates.
All right. Number 6. What CRM system is used at your organization? We've got Dynamics 365, Salesforce, ClickDimensions, Sugar CRM, which is now Sugar Cell, HubSpot, Monday, Lead Squared, or are you using something else? All right, we'll give it a few more seconds before I close down the poll. And we'll close it in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And here are the results. Salesforce is beat only by a combined field of others. Dynamics 365 comes in at 5%, HubSpot at 4%. Well, thank you for participating in poll question number 6.
Thank you, John. All right, let's move on over to our cash management added features. Here we have bank transaction dating and an enhanced view on your bank feed. Previously, transactions that were generated by creation rules were dated based on the company time zone. And bank feed transactions were dated based on the user time zone or the company time zone, which caused inconsistent matches for reconciliation. Now you can set the time zone on the bank account. This setting determines the timestamps for both created transactions and bank feed transactions, helping to increase matches and speed up reconciliation. If you do not set a time zone on the bank account, the time zone on your My Preferences page will be used. Now, if you don't have a time zone on your My Preferences page, the company time zone will default as the time zone being used. For our bank feed view enhancements, this is going to look at your live bank feeds that are feeding through and connected through our Sage Cloud services, and provides additional information and columns if these are provided by your bank. So the added feature here is to include more columns on your bank transaction list to view more information about those particular transactions. Now, again, these are going to be bank specific. If a particular bank has added or has information in any of these columns, it will populate. Not all banks will act the same. Our updated feature under cash management includes the inter-entity capability of creation rules. So here we had an attendee ask a question about the using multiple entities within a creation rule if set at the top level. And this particular functionality offers some additional capabilities around those inter-entity transactions. And here we have a table that outlines in which cases an inter-entity transaction is created. You can review this table and notice that we have a light bulb here. This idea did come directly from our ideas through our community. So previously, you had to manually create inter-entity transactions yourself for any journal entries that were generated by a creation rule and that captured data across entities. Inter-entity transactions are now automatically created if you have a creation rule that uses a journal entry transaction template with a location that differs from the location of the bank account. Meaning, for companies that enable inter-entity transfers, if you select a transaction template location that is different from the location defined on the cash management bank account, an inter-entity transaction is created. Note that if the bank account has disabled inter-entity transfers, no inter-entity transaction will be created. And this does allow you to save even more time during your reconciliation process by limiting the manual entry for those inter-entity transactions. A couple of added features for contracts. We have bundle products with kits. Now, product bundling can be a marketing strategy that potentially increases sales for you and saves money for your customers by combining multiple products into a one package deal. So previously, you needed to manage product bundles as individual contract lines in a contract. Here, you can combine multiple products into a single item and invoice out the kit as a single item. So in this example, again, this idea came from you, and we do have 2 links attached to our boxes here that you can follow for further information on these 2 newly added features to the contracts module. So in this example, we have 3 different items that are now bundled into one kit and are shown as one line item on the invoice as opposed to 3 separate items. Oh, whoops, I think I skipped one. We have some sample contract invoice printed document templates. It's another added feature So Sage Intacct has added 3 sample printed document templates that are designed specifically for invoices generated from the contracts module. You can use these templates as a starting point to quickly create printed document templates for your contract invoices. Now, users with the appropriate permission can export those sample printed document templates, customize them, and re-import them back in to use inside of the contracts module. And then you can assign those printed document templates to the appropriate customers or your order entry transaction definitions. We also have an improved user interface that's been updated under the contracts module, and a couple additional fields have been added to contracts that are renewal type contracts or termed contracts. You have a new trigger date and a renewal date fields that are at the contract level and are applied to both termed and evergreen contracts. You can find those new fields on a contracts renewal tab for termed contracts and on the auto renewal tab for evergreen contracts. You can see these 2 new fields added here. We have a trigger date and a renewal date. You can follow the link that's attached to this improved user interface box for more information on the differences as they apply to termed contracts versus evergreen contracts, as well as additional requirements in order to be able to view and incorporate those. Let's go ahead and pause here for our 7th polling question.
Great. So here is the 7th question. It's one of our lighthearted ones. You have been chosen to select the best picture of the 20th century. Would the Oscar go to The Wizard of Oz, To Kill a Mockingbird, The Godfather Part 2, Jaws, The Silence of the Lambs, or some other film? It's all a matter of taste, isn't it? So I'll have a few more seconds before I close the poll down. Last chance to get your vote in. And we'll close it down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the results are the Oscar goes to some other film. Wizard of Oz coming in 2nd, and Silence of the Lambs coming in at 3rd. So thank you for participating in the poll.
Thanks, Dawn.
Yes.
All right, now this is one of my more favorite added features in this release, and it relates to our reporting and dashboards area. So this release added feature is for companies that were created using the service industry quick start template, in which new dashboards are available to help users in specific roles get the information that they need. There's a dashboard containing relevant reports, tasks, and other information, potentially links and graphs for each of the following roles. Potentially your AP or AR managers, your CFO, controller, etc. Now, though these dashboards are designed for a specific user, any user with the right permissions can use them or view them. They do provide information in an easy to consume format, making them perfect for your Intacct homepage if you wish to have a particular dashboard preset as your homepage. Now let's take a quick look at a demo as it relates to this particular feature. Now, previously, these dashboards were available to not-for-profit companies, and they have now been added as a new feature for service industry companies. Now, if you are a newly provisioned company after the release has been pushed through, these are automatic. These dashboards are automatically viewable. However, if you have been set up as a service industry company prior to this release, you will have to download them from the dashboards library in order to view them. Now let's take a quick look here. And we do have a question here. Do we have to pay for additional dashboards like the controller or CFO dashboards? No, there is no additional cost with these this newly added feature for service type industry clients. However, again, if you were set up as a service industry type client prior to this update, you will have to go in and download them from the dashboard library. So let's go ahead and take a look on how to do that. We are going to go to our dashboards module and into our main dashboards list view. And I can see here that when I'm looking at my dashboards view, I don't see my potential controller or AP manager dashboard here. So in order to view those, you will go to your dashboards library. And the dashboards library will have those newly added dashboards that you can click install. Once you click install, Intacct will go into the installation process and will give you a message once those have been added. When they have been added, you will then be able to view them in your dashboards list view. So they are available to you at no additional cost. You just, if you were set up as a service industry client prior to the review, you will have to go into the dashboard library and add in that particular dashboard. Now, another cool feature that Intacct has added is a drill down through account groups at the total level. So previously, the group totals did not allow you to drill down into the total. You can now analyze your data by directly drilling down into the totals to view the transaction level details as they are displayed through a general ledger report. Well, let's take a quick look at that as well. I have a balance sheet pulled up here. So previously, if we're looking at our total cash and cash equivalents group here, for example, previously, you were not able to drill down into this total of the account group. With this new feature, you can. So not only can you drill down through on the account level, you can drill down into the total level. If we click on the total level, you can see a general ledger report of all of the transactions as they relate to the total of that group. I think this is a pretty neat feature as well. That way you can, you don't have to drill down to each of these account levels. You can drill down into the total and see a view of the breakdown of each one of these in detail. Let's look at a couple of general ledger added features. We have a lock close periods feature and some subledger transactions as they relate to the audit trail. So the locked closed periods helps to ensure that information in your system remains in agreement with official reports that you produce for the period. It is an additional feature to closing or opening your books. You can still use adjustment entries to update a locked period. And you can only lock periods that have been previously closed through the close books feature. And there's a little link here that you can follow to learn more about locking close periods. Now for our second added feature here, when a subledger transaction is created or changed, the journal entry now reflects the change in the audit trail. So, for example, for subledger transactions that have been created through the subledger, meaning maybe you have an invoice or a customer invoice or vendor bill that's been created, you can now track the changes through an audit trail. For deleted transactions as they relate to the subledger, You can track the deletion of those related changes through GL batches by running an audit history report. Now for order entry, we have a couple of notes here. These are not really additions or new features. We do have a couple of notes for our fulfillment for sales order management and commit quantities during order entry. Both of these features are available through an early adopter program, which means that if you're part of this program, you most likely previously qualified to be part of the program, meaning you are currently running order entry and have the option to for fulfillment during sales order transactions. So you can click the corresponding links as well here to learn more about these new features as they relate to the early adopter program. Now, if you think that you are a potential candidate for an early adopter program as it relates to order entry and are interested in participating in any of these products, please submit a support ticket to techhelp@lbmc.com, and we'll be happy to assist you with that particular registration. Now, if you're not using order entry, it probably doesn't make sense for you to be part of this adopter program. Right, let's go ahead and pause for our 8th and final polling question of the webinar, and then we'll continue to cover the last remaining slides of our session today.
Great. Thank you, Toma. So our 8th topic is budgeting season will soon be here. Are you looking to an alternative to Excel? Yes. No, we already replaced Excel with a budgeting solution, or no, everyone is happy with Excel. And just a few more seconds before I close down the poll. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And look at that. It's pretty even across the board. 31% are looking for an alternative to Excel. 30% have already replaced Excel with a budgeting solution. Good for you. And 40%, the majority, are saying no, everyone is happy with Excel. So thank you for answering the poll question. And Toma, back to you.
Thank you, Dawn.
You're welcome.
All right, let's take a look at some added features for our time and expenses module. If you are currently using Sage Intelligent Time, you can now easily switch between entities in Sage Intelligent Time, just like you do in Intacct. This update is available to all Sage Intelligent Time customers at no additional cost. For our second piece here, employee expenses from credit card transactions. You can now create an active and viewable link from an employee's non-reimbursable credit card transaction directly to their employee expense, allowing for speedy data entry and eliminating reconciliation between the credit card and your time and expense. After you create a credit card transaction, it posts to an employee expense clearing account until you code it to the appropriate expense account in the expense report. For added flexibility, you can split a single credit card transaction into separate expense lines on the expense report. For example, you can split a credit card transaction for airfare and meals into different expense category on the expense report. We'll take a look at some brief settings to enable this. However, I do suggest you taking a further look on how, if you're currently using time and expenses as they relate to credit cards and in terms of this feature. So at the credit card level, which is located in your cash management, you do have to enable at that credit card. If you edit that credit card at the very bottom, you do have to enable it to use with employee expenses. And then notice down here that I've added an employee expenses clearing account here. And what this is going to allow you to do is once you have created that particular credit card transaction, so let's say this $100 transaction, you can go into the time and expenses module under the staff expenses that are non-reimbursable. And if you look at that particular expense line, there is a checkbox here to link to an existing credit card transaction. So this will allow you to go in and select the existing credit card transaction and potentially split it if you need to split this expense to multiple different expense types. We also have a new developer portal for centralized access to all things developer. So think of this as the community for developers, and you have a link here to view that developer portal. And it's a pretty useful feature if you do have developers on your team or would like to learn more about web services, platform services, and additional tools as they relate to potentially those smart rules and smart events on the coding behind it. So some additional resources here. We have 2 links clickable for our Sage Intacct Help Center and your Sage Intacct University. This our Sage Intacct University previously was this was a new update released in January from the Learning Center. You also have a link here that allows you to look up meeting groups and potential future webinars that Sage Intacct will release. And here you can maybe grow your network and learn some new skills. And then the community. Our community allows us to connect with users, search other cases, and resolve product issues through support. Our 2023 release calendar. Again, you can find this release calendar if you're in your Sage Intacct homepage under the release announcement here. You can look at further release notes that we've mentioned during this webinar. And here we have our calendar for the releases as they relate to the 3rd and 4th quarters coming out in August and November, respectively. So keep an eye out for email registrations for our future hot topic and release features that will be completed by one of our LBMC consultants. And then also don't forget to submit ideas for future hot topics that you'd like to be considered. Now we are running up a little on time here at the top of the hour, so I would like to go ahead and extend a thank you and hope that you have enjoyed learning about the additional functionality in Intacct and through our hot topics review. Please reach out to us if you'd like more information regarding our hot topics presentation and the topics covered today, or if you have any additional questions regarding the R2 release updates.
Fantastic. Toma, thank you so much for your presentation today. Audience, thank you. You were so energized and you had tons of questions, which is always good to see. We here at LBMC Technology Solutions are here to help you. And please do fill out the survey. As I mentioned in the chat, if you have ideas for hot topics or ideas for a deep dive that you would like to see at future sessions, we'd love to accommodate that if at all possible, but we need to hear from you. So thank you for your attendance today. Toma, thank you so much for your presentation. And we'll see everyone next quarter for release 3.
Thanks very much, everyone.